backup is brought to you by the best evil person we know, the guy who made the dip in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The dip. Sorry, I mean evil spy boy. Remember the dip?
Yeah.
Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah, you just awoken something horrifying in me that I remember. And this isn't the
workbench.
No, it's that I remember that scene, and I'm now having flashbacks to seeing that and being horrified as a child. Thanks for that.
It's not a kid's movie, guys. It's not a kid's movie. It looks like it should be a kid's movie. That's not. It is too sexy and too violent to be a kid's movie.
Oh, Bob Hoskins, sexy.
In the same way that Ghostbusters, not a kid's movie, somehow became like a kid's movie, but Ghostbusters is all about Bill Murray trying to have sex.
Everyone saw the second one first and was like, this must be a kid's franchise. There's a first one. And then watched that and saw Dan Aykroyd getting that scene with a ghost and his eyes rolling. That's a bad movie. But it's a good movie. It's a bad scene. Bad actor.
Bad movie?
No, bad scene in a movie. Dan Aykroyd. Don't like him.
I mean...
You don't like Dan Aykroyd?
No, he's terrible.
Odd man, but not a bad actor.
He's not good in anything he does. Watch it. It's all the supporting cast around him. He's not funny. It's weird. It's a weird thing if you go back and watch it all. I promise you this. You'll come back next week and be like, Gus, you were right. I went back and saw it all.
Blues Brothers.
Yeah. The Blues Brothers.
Blues Brothers is great. that's John Belushi carrying him through it. Anyway, I'm
the straight man and the funny man.
Oh my god. Okay, good.
Evil
now we got
Spy
all that out of the way. I actually mean Evil Spy Boy. Get your exclamation mark Spy Boys out in the chat because thanks to his generous Patreon support, and he is a generous Patreon supporter, Evil Spy Boy is bringing you the backup. But it's not just enough for him to bring the backup. He's hoping you bring the generosity to Food Bank Australia. Food Bank is Australia's largest food relief organisation, providing 88 million meals a year to more than 2,600 charities around the world, accounting for 79% of all food received by charities from food rescue organisations. Evil Spy Boy wants you to be part of the solution and not the problem. And I don't necessarily think any of you are part of the problem, but you definitely can be part of the solution. And Evil Spy Boy wants to make sure that you are. Follow the links, foodbank.org.au in the chat right now to donate. And head to toastofmultifish.com for more information about the proclivities of Evil Spy Boy. We get to the backup, which is where we talk about the most hard-hitting news of the week, and we're going to start it off with a little video game series called Mass Effect. Heard of it, Peter?
I have heard of that one.
Yeah.
I've heard of that one.
Gus, have you heard of a little streaming service called Amazon Prime?
The delivery service that also has TV shows. I know the delivery service. I haven't watched a thing on it really.
When you put it like that, which is 100% factually accurate, it sounds very strange.
Australia Post streaming? What?
Totally.
No.
Yeah. Well, Amazon Prime and Mass Effect are reportedly joining forces. There are heavy rumors and speculation going around that they are nearing a deal to develop a Mass Effect TV series based on BioWare's popular sci-fi RPG. We've been hearing wantings and cravings from people for a very long time, basically since the games came out, about a Mass Effect TV show or a Mass Effect potentially film series. I think in today's age, Pete, a TV show is a much better approach to take for something like this. Are you interested in Mass Effect TV show? And if so, what story should they be telling?
Good question. I don't know what story they should be telling. I don't know that. I mean, they would probably just go with the classic Reaper Wars, right?
Classic Reaper Wars.
Go with what's kind of stuck the landing for some. But I think that like science fantasy television is in a pretty good spot for a science fantasy show to pop up and work. Obviously, like it's not like a new thing that science fantasy can work for a big audience. Star Wars exists, but we've seen things like what's the Expanse do well on that was on Amazon Prime, right?
Not initially, but it then got bought by Prime. Yeah,
right. Okay. We're seeing other little things like Ridley Scott's what was the
House of Wolves? No, Wolves
Raised by Wolves.
Raised by House of Wolves was the political one.
And Raised by Wolves was a little bit esoteric and weird, where like Mass Effect is very much popcorn action. And in a world where Game of Thrones has been successful, everyone's trying to build fantasy things. Obviously, we've got Lord of the Rings on the way. I think that people can, like, my mum and dad could sit, and that's how I always think about, will it work on television? Is it, will a generation above me like it?
Mm.
And I think that they've been trained enough now to go, like, yeah, they could watch that. They could go, I understand that there's humans in military outfits, but it's fantasy. It's not MASH in space.
Yep.
I never had that. I never had that love scene.
I would like
that. I didn't romance Hawkeye. I romanced Radar, I think, in my version, my playthrough of MASH. Yeah, I think you're right, Pete, in the sense that I think a lot of these new sort of adaptations that are going for the big budget streaming service show versions are for probably being pitched a bit more towards the casual market that haven't played the game. I think you got The Last of Us coming out as a series, and games where I feel like they could use the world, they could use it as a canvas to tell a story, and then within that they can drop in little character references or little cameos and things like that. I'd like it not to be the Reaper series. I'd like it to just be the universe, and I think that's the smarter approach. And I would say even The Witcher's kind of done that, in the sense that yes, it centers around Geralt, but it's about the world, and then about some of the characters who we know finding their origins and things like that. There's slightly smarter ways around it. I don't know if I'm thrilled for a Mass Effect show, though, because I think with those other two game references that I made, Last of Us and The Witcher, it's like they're well written around characters that are formed, whereas my Shepherd, like, it's such an RPG to me, where it's like you get to make your own story in it. I know it is always kind of like directed in your decisions, but it feels more like you have a personal connection to that story. And I just don't see that working as well if they focus on a Shepherd, so like, yeah, on a kind of remaking of the game story in a
You don't want them to take Shepherd away from you. You have a personal attachment to a Shepherd.
Yeah, but it's not particularly close. He or she was a blank canvas that it's just kind of you project on, and so therefore, like, no reinterpretation. I know everyone loves Shepherd. I was always attached to all the other characters. I was never that, like, connected to my Shepherd.
I'll tell you what, mate, you're not alone, because ex-Bioware lead writer David Gator is basically verbatim your opinion. He thinks it's a terrible idea. Quoting his tweet thread, he said, "For starters, Mass Effect and Dragon Age have custom protagonists, meaning a TV show will need to either pick whether said protagonist will be male or female. Boom, right off the bat, you've just alienated a whole bunch of the built-in fan base who had their hopes up. Secondly, these protagonists are designed to be a bit of a blank slate, one that the player fills out with their decisions, but then suddenly the protagonists will have their own personality and their own, quote, story that will be weird. Both Mass Effect and Dragon Age plots were at best serviceable. They had to take into account player agency. Most of the story was around the companions and the interactions that you had with the side characters. So he said, you take out all that, lose most of the companions, and you potentially end up with a pretty run-of-the-mill fantasy or sci-fi show where a lot of the built-in audience has possibly been turned into outraged, howling malcontents before it's even been released. He also notes that with a large TV audience, show producers will need to balance fans' desire for a story outside of the games with the need to deliver exposition to those new to the franchise. And in some regards, I take his point, but I'm also like, you're a writer. Like... Just you're acting as though they're going to take the scripts that you wrote and just shoot those. Like they're going to make new story. Like they're going to write a TV show. But it's a kind of bizarre thing. I think that Gus, I know your point about the like Shepherd was kind of a cipher with which to sort of tell your own story. I think that is totally something that you could do in. You can have a really big cast with a bunch of protagonists on the side. And I think because people went, I chose my own story in this, there's not necessarily like one story to tell. I think people who've played the game are aware, like, oh, I romanced this person and had to fight with this person and sacrifice this person. That's what I did. Not everyone did that. So a TV show will probably do something different. I hope that they... Like, I think it would be smart to just not go with Shepherd and have Shepherd as like an incidental character, maybe, and just go with the world of Mass Effect because it's pretty built out. There's lots of interesting races, and I've kind of been... I love sci-fi shows, and I've just been a bit disappointed. I feel like with some of the recent big ones, like the Raised by Wolves, didn't grab me, even though there was interesting things in it. It just didn't sort of hook me.
Mm.
I love the books for The Expanse, and the TV show I just cannot get into. I find it so boring to watch, but I adore the books.
A noir detective in a science fiction setting works in a book. And when you see a man in a hat on a space station, you're like, fuck off.
Why do you have a hat? Why do you have a hat? The sun's too bright. Like, yeah.
It's just, it's a very dour show, whereas the books, I feel like, have a lot more personality. You tell me Mass Effect TV show, and I think Battlestar 2.0, and that's all I want on television. Is like Battlestar Galactica is Mass Effect. It's all about like the relationships between all these characters stuck on this ship. They'll go on some adventures, and it'll be awesome. That's
what I see. I see slightly watered down, and I love Mass Effect. I see slightly watered down Farscape. Now that's my show that I like. I want like
watered down Farscape, which was already watered down.
That's
like
about as
Star
thin
Trek
as you can get.
Hey! Now that show was fucking amazing. Thank you very much.
That's a long black. That's one shot of coffee and 3 liters of water.
That's a Claudia Black. Thank you very much.
H2 minus 1.
That's what a Claudia Black is.
That show was great. I've been watching bits of it on YouTube, and I miss that kind of creativity and like fun in my sci-fi. And I worry that. Like there is
rubber
something
masks
about
is what you're looking for.
Yeah, rubber masks. There is the slight sterilization, I think, of the sci-fi. The sci-fi, the bigger the budget gets. Even like I can see what you mean by Raised by Wolves. I love that because it was so high concept. But it was like it was not delivering on kind of the wonders of space and some of the fanciful elements of having multiple races and all that. So I hope they enjoy the universe of Mass Effect and don't make it so gritty and realized that it just becomes politics in space, senates and all that kind of stuff. So
and if you make it about, and even though they probably will make it about Shepard because it's the main story and they'll probably just do that, if you don't make it about Shepard, you avoid all the pitfalls of people going, that's not my Shepard, and for the people who played the games, and people who haven't played the games will never know the difference. And then if they are inspired to go play the games, then it's not like they've just watched a show that tells the whole story. So there you go. That could happen. It may not. Regardless, it's going to be a while until we see it, but hopefully it's good. Moving on. Epic Games have bought Harmonix, developer behind Rock Band, and last year's music mixing title Fuser, and I believe also Drop Mix. Did they do Drop Mix?
Yes, Harmonix did Drop Mix. Yeah.
So they've been acquired by Epic to create, quote, musical journeys and gameplay for Fortnite. Peter, you're the resident musical maestro and
I was like
hardcore Fortnite fan.
Keep it coming. Epic new music games, blah 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 for Fortnite.
I'd like to hear you. I skimmed these headlines and read a bit, but I went up and down literally that last news story with all those quotes from the ex-Bioware lead. I hadn't read all that, so I was like, oh wow, I didn't even know that's what he said. This one, I read Harmonix has been bought by Epic. I was like, great, I'll have an opinion on that. I literally did not read the last sentence of creating musical journeys for Fortnite. Peter.
Can I just say, it's fine. It's fine that I do all the work, but it is not the last sentence, Gus. It is the end of the first sentence. So you read Harmonix, the developer behind the likes of Rock Band and last year's music mixing title Fuser, has been acquired by Epic Games too, and then you stopped reading the sentence.
I read the tops of all the paragraphs to be like, okay, I'm getting the gist of this. That's how I skim, Nick. It's not the right way, but it's my way, and this is details that I should have paid attention to.
Wow. So Fortnite's about to get something.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, a really good thing that a company like Harmonix, a dev team like Harmonix, have a new home to create something that will hopefully work. They're just like, it's so awesome that there's a group that's making something so specific that they're passionate about, that they're able to keep producing stuff. It's a shame that they don't have huge success with their other bits and pieces, because really the thing that makes their games super interesting, they do so much great work, and then the thing that it then hinges on is that there's a peripheral to tie it all together, and then and it's always a gimmick because of that, and it's always really exciting because of that, but it just goes by the wayside so quickly because you're like, the gimmick is done. I've seen how that works. It's impressive how that works, but I don't need any more of it. It would be a shame if we don't get them. I would hope that Epic would be like, all right, once every 5 years, you can make a plastic thing that people play around with, and good luck to you. But we'll take the loss on it just to keep the creatives on board. And then I'm not sure what we're going to see in Fortnite, but that thing, I think, like I don't have any particular affection for Fortnite, but I think that it's really good that they keep trying different things with it because there's such a huge player base, and to give a lot of young gamers experiences that they might not seek outside of Fortnite is important. It's kind of like the same thing that Roblox does, is provides a suite of opportunities to learn different things within the constructs of a video game. So it makes me happy that Epic at least explore these kinds of things.
Even just that they credited Harmonix by going, we're going to basically acquire them, versus going, we're going to try and make rock band / music rhythm games and just knock off what you have made iconic in throughout your series. It's like this time. Yeah, it's interesting because there's so much like playroom to then say, like, is this going to just dabble as something that is just silly that's an addition on Fortnite, or like what can they use from the team at Harmonix to actually integrate to make a musical journey that isn't just, hey, here's a bunch of button prompts to play a fake guitar at the top of a mountain after getting a kill or something. It's like, I'd be interested to see.
I can see something like, I think there's two versions of this. One is where they do the concert stuff like Travis Scott and Ariana Grande, where there's some sort of like, you can play along with them as they're performing their song, and you're like part of a 4 million person strong band or something watching this concert. And I think that there is something there that could be cool. I think the other thing is that they even say later on in their blog post that Harmonix put out, they said, now we'll be working with Epic to once again challenge expectations as we bring our unique band of musical gaming experiences to the metaverse, and we couldn't be more excited. Now, putting aside the fact that the metaverse is a thing that apparently we can't stop, and that's really fucked, I think that they're also going, well, maybe we do just put Rock Band, whatever it is in the future, into Fortnite. And so you have another option for doing something in Fortnite other than shooting or creating levels for shooting. So it is that thing of like fulfilling the vision of putting more games in this one platform. And Pete, I'm with you that I think that Rock Band, like Harmonix, have survived much longer than I have expected Harmonix to survive. And I had to look into it, and a lot of it is like angel investor funding and series round funding. They've never really been totally just flush with cash and fine. A lot of it is like, we've got the money for the next project. Here, they don't need to worry about that anymore. But I do think that as much as a lot of Fortnite doesn't speak to me, even though I do really like it, I admire the fact that basically everything Fortnite does is the best version of what it could be. And I think that that is the difference between something like Facebook and what they're trying to do with a metaverse and what Fortnite is trying to do with the metaverse. Whereas I can imagine in Facebook, there will be a shitty like version of some sort of like play music with your friends, but you didn't acquire the number one developer of that entire genre and now put them in your company.
And
so
your
I think
company,
that there is something. Sorry,
yeah, I was going to say, and the idea that everything that gets channeled through Fortnite gets you're right, the shit polished out of it, and in doing so has to be entertaining and engaging and capturing first. And that's something that when you put it through, say, a Facebook or something, it has to tick a lot of other boxes as well, a lot of which aren't be engaging and entertaining and as fun as hell. It's
a lot of it is like sell ads or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whereas the Fortnite model is, if it is not being perpetually like, if there's not an urge to want to go back and keep playing this thing, whatever it is, be it a digital concert or an integrated game like whatever they might be doing here, then they're doing something wrong. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I think that no matter what it is, it'll be a great implementation of whatever they're doing, because I can't think of something that Fortnite has put in their game that has not been been a great version of what they have tried to do. And if it launched a little rough, then they immediately fix it. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. And hopefully they do still get to put out some new cool standalone stuff that isn't tied into just Epic titles. Speaking of cool standalone things, Gus, Hideo Kojima, the world's
my boy,
greatest storyteller, has his company Kojima Productions has launched a new film and television division. It's not just games, it's not just TV, it's film and it's music. And it's all headquartered.
I didn't get down to that. I only just read the top 4 words.
And it's all happening in LA. It's led by former PlayStation business executive Riley Russell. And the idea is that they want to take the Kojima Productions franchises, quote, now under development, and extrapolate them out into every other possible medium. I can't think of another... so many people take a career step where it's like, I'm doing this so I can do this. I'm becoming a waiter in a restaurant in Hollywood so I can meet a director and get cast in a film. Hideo Kojima is the only person I can think of who has taken a role where they are at one of the biggest names in the entire industry in which he is temporarily taking a job to try to break into another industry.
Out. Yeah.
I cannot think of another person who's like, I'm a rock star in my field.
I became
and I'm
the
only
president
doing it
just so that I could meet George Miller.
Exactly. It's crazy. There's never been someone who wants to be a filmmaker more than Hideo Kojima, and probably doesn't deserve it, Gus. But how do you feel about the idea of getting some Kojima TV shows and films?
Well, first, I'll just say good for them. I think, in terms of for the actual Kojima Productions, I think it's a reasonably interesting sidestep. And as you said, Nick, it is very much like it's a very obvious one to be like, hey, this is the next step up from engaging with Hollywood A-listers in my game to now being like, I want to smooth them. I want to be able to create media that I don't have to facially scan them for. I can just audition them for directly and then put them in 6-hour cutscenes. I think... I don't think I'm not particularly excited by this. I will say, as a fan of Kojima games, I do think the worst parts of them are the cutscenes, are the storytelling that is done outside of gameplay. So this is not really exciting me in the sense of breaking into film and TV. I think the broad concepts of a Kojima production are always fascinating, and then the minutiae of the gameplay and the mechanics, and that is also... There's a huge divide in the middle that I do not care for, which is, as I said, those aforementioned cutscenes. And if this does anything to try and promote that as the key selling point of a Kojima production, then I don't want any part of it. Music-wise, I think they do some pretty good, cool stuff with music and arts. That's kind of cool. But in terms of film and TV, I think maybe there's a world in which there's, the sort of key learnings from the upcoming productions can be taken and split off into something that's being made in the other two mediums of film and TV. But as a direct production, does not really excite me that much. As I said, I push through all of the stuff we're seeing on screen now, which is again one of those famously long cutscenes in Death Stranding that I was never engaged by them. I never found them particularly interesting. I think the gameplay is where those ones always shine, and this stuff is very much like padding and fan service to the one fan of them, who is Kojima himself.
In the gameplay of Death Stranding.
Peter, you played
there
that
was
game
padding around the packages.
There was, exactly.
It is so funny that while I tend to agree that I love the ideas behind his stories, his storytelling is not particularly strong. But Death Stranding is the one where I'm like, I wish I could just watch the story and never have to play the game. Whereas it's almost the opposite in the rest of them. Pete?
Thank God Hideo Kojima is going to have to meet an editor.
I don't think he will.
It'll probably be cut by him. Yeah, you're right. Look, good on him.
That's what I said.
It's definitely. I know. I echo the sentiment. Good on him. They've been a standalone studio now for what, 4 or 5 years, a little longer. No.
Yeah,
It would have been like 16.
Yeah.
15 or
Is it?
16.
Yeah, I think it was about 16 because it was
Yeah.
Death Stranding was the first thing they did.
Yeah. So cool that they've found themselves trying to be creative in different areas. But yeah, like I think Kojima has so many good ideas and just doesn't have anyone around him trying to focus him. Every time I play anything from him, even the good stuff, it's so unfocused. There's just a million ideas scattershot through it.
Yeah.
That will not work in a film or a television show. Like, I think, I hope this is like part of it. But he's like a 55-year-old man. Is he going to learn anything from this? I don't know. But I would hope that he will learn better processes for editing his story ideas. I think they're still going to be batshit insane, but I would like to think that he goes, well, if I'm going to make a show and it's going to be on Netflix, it has to be hour-long episodes, let's say, which is still enough time for him to be crazy, but is a restriction that I think will help him refine his work, hopefully.
My guess out of this story as well is that what we're seeing here is that they're setting up a headquarters in an office in LA. I think this is essentially just creating a sort of boots on the ground foothold in La La Land.
It's a desk to allow for meetings.
Honestly, it's that to not be like, hey, we've flown them in, or we're having these satellite meetings. It's to say, hey, we have a Kojima
We had lunch with
Productions-
Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, totally. And that is not to then set up, well, I don't know, but speculatory, not to set up Kojima production house movie studios. It's to be there to pitch all these crazy ideas, to which people would then say, that's insane, why would anyone want to watch that? And they can say, well, it's a video game, and it's about carrying a package, and it's actually wonderful. This could be something that could be bought by a studio, picked up with directors. Kojima could be associated with it. He could come in and have final director's cut. But that's what it is. It's I think in that sense, it's getting their stories sort of a through line to the, to Hollywood, essentially.
There's there's like a 75% chance that nothing comes of this, but hopefully
It's a hot desk
I
in a
like to see
warehouse.
people. Yeah, I like to see people get their dreams realized, and if he can add to his millions by like becoming a Hollywood film director and putting out something good, then that's great.
I want to see Riley Russell getting a hotel room in LA and then just hanging a little printout of like Kojima Productions out the front and putting the desk up near the window and being like, all right, we're a film studio now, Kojima.
Totally. I like Lord Phoenix in the chat says, editor, reads script, circles the entire thing, hands it back to Kojima. Just fix the circled parts. So we may be seeing more of that. I mean, the only thing that they have at the moment is Death Stranding. So there's other games incoming, obviously, and other ideas. So it could be around anything. It's probably can't be around Metal Gear because you're going to have to get Konami involved with that. So yeah, we'll see. More exciting news, at least for me, more Hitman 3 maps are coming, contrary to everything that IO have said previously. Hitman 3.
You're saying they're liars.
I'm saying they're liars. Well, I mean, they make a game about a murderer. So what do we expect, Pete?
About a man who lies through costume. Ooh, I'm a chef. Ooh, I'm
the first anniversary for Hitman 3 is 2 months away. Hitman 3, of course, the game that everyone forgets came out this year.
I was going to say started this year.
Did it?
Yeah. It was the first game this year.
I feel
really
sick.
like the first big game. This year has been both
4 years have passed since this game came out.
This year has been both 4 years and 2 weeks. I don't know how it's possible, but it's true. Hitman 3 is also the most successful game in the Hitman franchise, which is great because it's completely IO's thing now. And as such, they have big plans for Hitman 3 Year 2, including new maps and modes. So there's, according to a blog post, new maps, storylines, modes, and ways to play are all lined up for 2022. They had put out one piece of downloadable content that was in March, I believe. Oh, it started in March and it rolled out until October that sort of reused existing maps. Whereas the previous games, we saw new DLC maps coming in, like new locations and stuff. So there will be a major update to the game scheduled for spring. Elusive target is being changed as well. So this is the thing where like you go into a game, you have one chance to kill one NPC wandering around the map. And if you get it, then you get it. And if you don't, you don't get the chance again
Was that
to
received
kill
well?
that person.
Because I never did that.
Yeah,
but
massively. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
People love it. Like if you're a Hitman fan who's really into it, like that's the kind of hardcore shit that you're really into.
Yeah, right.
And then there's also something that they're bringing in called Elusive Target Arcade, and I don't really know what that is, but I'm guessing
Wave
that it's
mode.
something along the lines of it's a wave mode of all the elusive targets just wandering through. I'm guessing it's some version of like you can put together this target in this map, have to kill them this way, and it's either a randomly generated thing or something that you can sort of like set up for other people. But we were all fans of this game, right?
Yeah.
Like we got in. I remember, Pete, this was like the Hitman that got you in. I am so excited for more Hitman maps because obviously IO are moving on to the James Bond game. And I thought that Hitman would be left by the wayside for years and years, but it sounds like no, more, please.
Yeah, it's good. It has clearly meant that it's done well enough for the studio that they see the value in keeping the conversation around the game alive and keeping content rolling out. And yeah, I mean, it's a great game, and it only
50
has
million players,
so much replayability. 50 million players.
50 million
That's
players.
huge.
It's the most successful of all time within the Hitman series.
Yeah, amazing. Good on him.
I'm still yet to play it, so I'm keen to.
Oh, I thought you played it. Well,
Nope.
Gus, in January, you're getting ray
There's a
tracing
wave
on
mode.
PC. No, there's not a wave mode. There's something else that you love. It's a water-based mode. No, it's a.
He learns
you
to
can play the
sail.
whole game. You can play the whole game in VR.
I saw that update because this was something that they did. Like they had, wasn't it when it launched? They had like one level in VR or no. Sorry, the old
no.
the previous Hitman games came out and were made fully VR for PlayStation VR only. Was that's what I
Something
think it
like
was.
that. Yes,
And it
something like that.
reviewed average to poor, but this is, I assume, not just going to be for that. That was mainly to do with the PlayStation's VR limitations. Then, so I imagine is the VR. I don't know if you have this information, Nick, but is that on?
It's in the script. It's right there in the script.
For
I'm kidding. I'm fucking with you.
damn you, son of a bitch. Is it for Oculuses and things like that, or is it still going to be tied to the PlayStation VR?
It is no, it's PC VR. So
Yeah, great.
I don't think they've announced platforms, but I think that all PC VR kind of works on everything, right? Like there's a version of a cable that can hook in basically every headset.
Spazros saying in the chat it's coming to PC with tracked controllers, which was, I think, the main issue. It was using the old Joy-Con, we call them.
Wands.
Yeah, so that's cool. That could be really cool.
Yeah,
I want to.
Yeah, that could be really cool. I think you would love it, dude. I think you would really.
Oh, totally. I just missed that there was so many game coming out at the start of the year that I missed that single one.
Mm-hmm. That's a coward's excuse. Yeah, I remember it was a very slow start to the year, Gus.
So I said there was a lot of game at the start of the year. I mean, it was that single one, and I
I get it. That was
there you go. There you go.
That was funny. I'll tell you what. It was so until oh my god, it took so long for games to start coming out. So it was Resident Evil Village was the next big game to come out after Hitman 3. It was Hitman 3, and then I'm just looking at my list of like games that I played, and it's games like Nausea, Angerfoot.
Oh my god, Nausea.
If on a Winter's Night, Four Travelers, Genesis Noir. Like it sort of really goes on until you hit that. Cool. So yeah, very exciting. Everyone loves Hitman, and good for them. I'm so happy that it's doing well. Something else that I really want to work, but I just don't think will, is we got word, and by we I mean, us specifically, we were contacted. According to a recent investor presentation, DC Universe Online developer Dimensional Ink Studios are working on a Marvel IP-based, massively multiplayer online game. That's an MMO for those of us in the know. There has been a couple of attempts at a Marvel MMO. Marvel Universe Online was a thing that got cancelled in 2008. And then there was a couple of years ago, there was another Marvel MMO in the works, and it got cancelled as well. And the companies that worked on those are also working on this one. So this is like the people involved, whether it's the head of the company or the developers themselves, have been involved in 2 previous cancelled Marvel MMOs over the last decade and a half. And I don't know, Pete, whether or not that is a good sign or a bad sign.
It sounds like a bad sign to me. I guess at least they've had a couple of cracks at it, so they know where they went wrong, and starting from scratch might get it right.
Was it making a superhero MMO?
Yeah, I was going to say the 2 things we got wrong were Marvel superheroes and MMO.
Yeah. Like, does anyone want a superhero MMO? It's such a weird thing. Like, it's so impossible to balance and have a satisfying progression system. You're a superhero. You're meant to be super powerful from the start.
You're meant to be the single thing in a world where everyone is normal. You stand out and are super. And yeah, totally, Pete. It doesn't work as the format in the way that like traditional MMOs, if you were looking at them
fantasy, sword and board,
fantasy,
like Warcraft,
and D&D fantasy, it's like every person in the tavern can have their own powers, abilities, be different from one another, and they live in this wonderful old fantasy universe, and that makes sense stylistically, aesthetically, storytelling wise. But superheroes, the same way like the Matrix Online didn't kind of work. It's like everyone is the one, and you're like, no.
Well, for podcast listeners, right now we're watching footage of DC Universe Online where 2 Supermans are fighting things that they should annihilate with a single glimpse of their fire eye. And I mean, because of course MMOs also very like have to fill out with just really rote filler content. And filler content is a great way to make you feel unpowerful.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like the closest thing to compare it to would be Star Wars. It was just called the Old Republic, wasn't it? Yeah. Which, well, I mean, even that.
No, that's just that's just space fantasy.
It's space fantasy. There's an established concept of not like every superhero that I can think of gets their powers, or is Superman and crash lands and is powerful because of the sun or something. Whereas, like, even in Star Wars, it's like there's a process of becoming a Jedi, learning how to master something. And while that learning to master your own power is part of the superhero kind of trope, it's just not as effective because it's like it's all innate power. It's not learning skills, and if it's learning skills, it's like I shoot ice beams instead of fire beams now, and it's like, is that fun? Is that fun to learn? I don't know.
I feel like for the superhero genre, like the only thing I could see working in like this current era of like where superheroes have evolved with Marvel films is something like kind of like, is it Invincible on Amazon, where it was like a new universe with new characters and a world where it's like they've reset the world of the expectations of what heroes are and that kind of thing. Like attaching it to DC and attaching it to Marvel and having worked in DC, it's like I know they're established in what we think superheroes are, but they just don't work when you then want to try and make a who's who roster of create your own superpowers, drawing on all these old established ones, when each one was written as a standalone hero in a single comic book who eventually all merged universes. It feels weird for me in an MMO sense. I think start from scratch, build something original, and make that your own. So personally, it does nothing for me. Yeah.
Because you also kind of run into the thing that I think is the most damaging stuff around the idea of live service games around something like Marvel is how protective Marvel is, and I would say rightfully so, of their IP. So you just inherently, it always has to, like, I am speaking like we don't know what's going to happen, but I do think like if you can play as Spider-Man, it's always got to feel like Spider-Man. Spider-Man's not going to be running around in an outfit that doesn't look like something Spider-Man would wear. Spider-Man's not going to have powers that don't feel like they are what Spider-Man does, and those powers all have to have some sort of like spider-related thing, and so
My spider lasers, that's not a thing.
like spider, yeah. And so it's I think that you kind of get hampered by the idea of like, oh, there's only so much we can creatively do with this, and the MMOs are really about, like you said, millions of people are playing them. So how can you make your MMO character different from everyone else? And there's only so many ways you can do that when Disney is standing above you, going, not that color. Not that color, not that color. So yeah, we'll see. Years and years away is when this will be, 2023 at the earliest. This was part of its longer term projects when they were looking ahead in their financial outlook. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think I like the idea of MMOs now. Maybe I don't like. I mean, I tried to play New World and I fell off New World after like 4 days. Admittedly, it's an incredibly boring game, but it is like, maybe I just think I want them, but then I start playing them and I'm like, no, this is the time for this genre is over. And I was
going to say, there's a broader discussion
the time for Halo is now.
There's a discussion about how an MMO today needs to, what it has to do to survive and to be interesting and to still capture that same magic. And I think it has to do more than just change its setting and its character types. And so I think, I think as well, the problem here, along with the superhero stuff we mentioned, is how do you make a successful MMO in today's age that can keep up with everything else that every other genre is changing into. So,
and I don't think anyone has that answer. It's the same with the Destiny problem, right? Like Destiny, I can't remember who said this. I read an article, listened to a podcast like a year and a half ago or something, where they said that Destiny has been one of the worst things to happen to video games because as a model, it doesn't work except for Destiny. Destiny is the only live service game that has managed to make it work and make it good. And everyone else is chasing that thing going, well, look what Destiny did about how we can just put out these big content drops and we can monetize with microtransactions, but also get people to pay for expansions and kind of have this big open world. And it's kind of like an MMO and we can have all these races. And then everyone puts out a game and it doesn't work. And it's just like, but everyone's still like, but Destiny is still going over 2 games. How is that possible? And it's like they sold their soul to game Satan. That's how. And you aren't willing to do the same thing.
It's just like it's a fundamentally at its core, it's a really solid game. Destiny, like all these things are built to, and it's Destiny
so
1. You know, it was coming off the back of Halo, so it was already going to be a good game to play. And back then, like from memory, I know that it was like dotted around planets and stuff, but it was like the idea of the Destiny model developed until we got to Destiny 2, right? Like as Chad is saying, Destiny 1 was a chore. Like they hadn't perfected the loop properly, but they also hadn't perfected that model, which they got to. But the reason people kept playing it and they were able to keep developing the monetization system was because the game at its core was just brilliant to play. And things like Avengers aren't brilliant to play. They have a fun progression system, and people
want them to be a good game. They want the Avengers to be a good game. It's not a good game labored with other things. Whereas Destiny was like, it was a good game. It just didn't have enough content.
Yeah, and so I think like to keep talking about Avengers, it's like Avengers is fun to play because you're trying to get the next piece of the monetization model. You know, you're trying to get the skins, or you're trying to get that's why you're playing, as opposed to playing it because it's fun. It's fun because you can achieve things, but it's the flip on how it should work. It should be fun to play,
they're built
and
from
you
the top
achieve
down.
things, not it's fun to play because you get given things.
They're built from the top down with all those things in mind, and then they channel it all down to a base or a core, as you said, Pete, that's not fun or doesn't drag you in. Whereas, Destiny was built with, Bungie and a core gameplay that is just objectively just fun, and then they built out from there and got to where they are now. So it's just, that's always how those games are going to try and imitate. It's going to be through where they are, where they've evolved to, and then work. They're not working the right way around. So, and then they put capes on everyone. So no.
And probably MMOs are just like, just a bygone kind of game. Like people have taken the things that work for them, put them in other games, and expanded them. So yeah. Anyway, we'll see how it goes, but I don't hold out too much hope for that. This next story. So this is a story just for me, and I don't need any comment from this other than just like your general support and enjoyment of this. But the greatest football team in the world, Liverpool, has a player called Diogo Jota, and they're playing this weekend in the Premier League. I woke up yesterday, watched the game, great game. He scored 2 goals. At one point, I think it was after his first goal, gets it in, crowd goes wild, he runs off to the corner of the pitch, slides, sits down cross-legged and pretends to play a video game. And I'm like, that's weird. Why is he sitting there pretending to play a video game? Turns out that before the match, and there's the celebration right there, before the match, he was part of a FIFA 22 international qualifier event that he had to leave early so that he could go play actual football in the Premier League.
And score a goal.
And so that was a bit of a reference to the fact that he was just playing that morning. The conversation got revealed between him and his next scheduled opponent in this tournament. Jota sent a message saying good luck, and then said, I can't play now, so I'll miss the check-in. To which his opponent said, oh, okay, good luck for the match in real life. And Jota said thanks. So this was like a cool story that like you were playing FIFA in the morning before you ran off and became a Premier League superstar in the afternoon. And we all wish we could do that.
And if we watch the clip back, we can take 2 things from it. Which, one, it's adorable that he plays cross-legged sitting on the floor. And also he's like clearly playing on either a Steam Deck or a backbone with the size of that Wii U. Or he's a tiny man who plays with a big controller. Plays with the Duke.
The Duke, yeah.
And so then the other cool part of this is that this is not just like, he wasn't just trying this. He is an insane FIFA player and is ranked in February, was ranked number 1 in the world on FIFA Ultimate Team Champions leaderboard after going 30-0 during the Champions Weekend League of FIFA Ultimate Team. There's a reference here from the Eurogame article that said, which is basically like winning 30 matches without a loss in FIFA Ultimate Team's most hardcore competitive mode is the kind of record that pro FIFA players shoot for. And he does that and then also plays on one of the greatest football teams of all time.
Isn't the Ultimate Team the card-based thing? Or do you build a team from the cards and then
you build a team from the cards? Yep. You build a team from the cards and then you play games. Yeah.
Crazy. I like that you need to clarify that it was a 30-0 streak of games, because I thought he went 30-0 in a single game, and I'm like, now that's an exciting sport. Soccer's famously either draws or 1-0, and it's like 30-0. Wow, what a match of soccer!
My God, he steamrolled them. Yeah, I just think that's awesome. That like I know like there's a lot of sports stars who played the sports games of the sport that they play, but he's been playing since he was a kid, and to be able to like do a tournament in the morning and then go actually play in the Premier League that afternoon, and probably be pissed that he had to leave his tournament early to go do his job.
But that's why he got the goal quickly. He's like, get out of here, come on.
When I think about sports stars translating their skills across, like FIFA doesn't translate to football. Like there's nothing in the mechanics of playing FIFA. He's just fucking brilliant at both of those things. When you think about think about Shane Van Gisbergen iRacing, it's like he's doing a sim that's like he's doing practical physical things that can translate.
He's doing muscle memory things.
It's not 1-to-1, but it's like it's he's doing the same.
It's pretty close though. Yeah.
Whereas this is like he's just brilliant at 2 things.
It's kind of brilliant because it's like, imagine playing if people only played FIFA. Sorry, if the other people who are on the other team have only played it in real life and don't. He's getting the advantage of sitting down to play a top-down position simulator that is obviously like a video game, but is still doing something in his brain to make him look at a pitch and think of good plays and good positioning and things like. I
mean, he's looking at it like he knows that like he knows how to press, how to drop back. He knows like structure of that. I guess he's not in control of everyone else on the field. Whereas in an actual football match, it's like, even though you're not in control of them, it's like, we've all agreed that these are like the plays
How
we're going
things
to
work, yeah.
do. This is how we're going. This is the structure of how we're going to play this game out. And I think that there is, obviously, he knows more about football, so that will inherently help him in some way in FIFA. But the weight of kicking the ball is not, he doesn't need to physically swing his leg. He needs to press a button for a certain amount of time and then let go. And the fact that he's both a baller at both of those things makes me feel even worse about how bad I am at both of those things.
Great picture on a live stream, though.
Thank you very much, Peter. And then finally, look, we spent a lot of time here talking about delays. Everything's delayed. Nothing's fucking coming out. Next year, I heard, is going to be even worse just across the globe for delays and the sort of the shipping pipelines and stuff. Guys, we tried to buy a coffee table last night that normally you would try to buy a coffee table. They're like, yeah, it'll be at your house on Friday. Estimated delivery of this coffee table from Freedom, fucking May next year. May for a coffee table. It's like, where are you getting this marble
smart
from?
table?
To be fair, yours
I don't
has
understand.
It's built out of GPUs, so that's probably why.
Yeah. You shouldn't have got the 3080 edition.
Yeah,
that's what I shouldn't have got it. But so I'm excited to be able to announce that someone else has announced that a video game has actually been moved up.
Breaking
SIFU,
news.
which was delayed. SIFU. So SIFU, the martial arts fighter where when you die, you age, was supposed to come out this year. It got delayed to February 22nd of 2022. And now they announced it got moved up and it would now be coming February 8th of 2022.
Nice. You know what they shouldn't have done? They shouldn't have announced that. They should have just dropped it on February 8th and done the month early drop.
Last week.
And made Nick Boy a happy boy.
Surprise everyone.
They should have. And I reckon part of this, I mean, obviously they need to have had the game ready, so they're confident that it'll be ready like 2 weeks earlier than usual. But when we spoke about how Saints Row has delayed itself into August from February, and then I went through the list last week of all the games coming out in February, and it's disgusting. And Pete, you and I did the maths. I reckon that Sifu's gone. If anyone is going to play our game, we got to be one of the first games that you buy in February, not the thing you don't pick up at the end.
Yep. Yeah,
totally.
That's probably what they were thinking.
I was watching this keenly up until a certain point, and I totally missed the mechanic that you age when you die. I think the last trailer I watched was just purely a gameplay one and had none of that in it. So that's a cool mechanic I had no idea about. That's sick.
You're a fascinating person.
Yeah, I started the trailer and was like, cool trailer.
This is how much of the trailer you watched. He watched this.
Yep.
And then he was like, oh, I love content that's not for children.
It's Gus, so you know, you every time you die, you age up. It's not like 1 year. I think it gets older and older. You also don't start as a baby. Cowards move, I think. But then there is a certain point. I think it's in your mid-70s that if you die, you don't come back to life, and then you need to restart at the next checkpoint. Do
you get slower and more brittle as you get old?
Yeah, they didn't really clarify a lot of that. I would think you have to, otherwise, what's the point of this mechanic?
Yeah.
This mechanic is just totally an unlimited continues until a certain point, but unless it affects the way that you move,
maybe I should look into this instead of getting work, but maybe you get weaker, but you get more knowledge, so you get more moves or something. So you gain knowledge, but lose the bone structures.
Maybe at a certain point, towards the 70s, people just start feeling sorry for you as well. And so
or just forgetting where you are mid-fight.
So
come back.
Yeah, I think it could be tied to a mechanic, or it could be tied to a story thing as well.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's it's not honorable to beat up people after you're 75, so you retire.
You win
after you're 75.
Yeah, it's go.
If you're 76 and someone threatens you to a fight, you need to do the honorable thing and go, I'm sorry, I'm too old to fight you.
I couldn't possibly.
Well, we don't need to wait too much longer. It is now only 2.5 months away until we can play SIFU. very exciting. And that is literally all the video game news that happened this week. I was worried because it was a bunch of sort of small things. It wasn't really a huge king hit. But you know what? We had a great chat anyway, and that's what this is all about.